Welcome to today's presentation on Thomas Jefferson. Today we're going to focus on how Thomas Jefferson was an American statesman and a leader, and without his leadership, we would not be the country we are today, especially in the areas of liberty and education. Thomas Jefferson was born in 1743, and while we have a lot of information about his early life, in what he did, we're going to focus today more on his contributions during the Revolution and the constitutional foundations that we find ourselves forming into a new nation. He studied at the College of William and Mary from 1760 to 1762, and he studied law just after that as well. He was elected into the Continental Congress in 1775. Shortly thereafter, about a year later, is when he drafted the Declaration of Independence in 1776. Now, the Journals of Congress, which can be found at the Library of Congress website, state that the original form that Jefferson provided was altered, and the final version was read and accepted on July 4, 1776, and immediately required and ordered by Congress, in fact, to be published to newspapers and journals and the like. What's interesting to note here, and is important to note, is that Thomas Jefferson's original version of the Declaration had a much stricter, much harsher condemnation of the British people. In essence, he was saying that the people of Great Britain were, in short, aiding and abetting, if you will, their king and parliament in condemning and in hurting the economy and other areas of American shipping and what have you. That was stripped out, but nonetheless, it's still an important point to know where Jefferson's thinking was going at that time. According to Edwin Alderman, writing for the Journal of Education in 1925, Jefferson's legacy to America was his leadership, because he fought for liberty and justice for all. It began with the Declaration and continued throughout his life as he founded the University of Virginia. And now, while we're on the subject of education, a professor at Farley-Dixon University, Samuel Pleasance, writes in the Proceedings of the American Philosophical Society that it was Jefferson's leadership as a statesman and founder in formulating the Declaration that led him to place an emphasis on the education of America's youth. The ideas of freedom that were espoused in the Declaration translated for Jefferson into the belief that education equaled enlightenment for the next generation, spilling over into the American educational system for years to come. Now, Liberty University's Biblical Principles in the Study of History states that God has established order, intelligence, and truth in the university and history, cited from many Old and New Testament texts. And what this means is that Jefferson understood that God ordains all things, but he left his mark on freedom in American education to be emulated throughout the world. For Jefferson, I would argue that it was his understanding of liberty and education that prompted him to write the Declaration, but furthermore to understand the value that education had in enlightening those that would be coming behind him to leave their own legacy. He understood this clearly, and I think that is why he believed in education, in educating America's children. And now there are many of those out there, whether they be historians or educators, who have the youth in their classrooms and try to pass on this living legacy. And I think Jefferson is a great example of somebody. Now, while I don't always agree with some of his other points in his life, some of the things that may or may not have been attributed to him, I would argue that his impact upon education and liberty, and the two going hand in hand, is something that we cannot scoff at and something that we should embrace. Because a free man is one who can learn, who can read, who can study, and can understand who they are in relation to what the world or where the world is going at that point. Freedom of education without Jefferson wouldn't be possible.